Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an awesome episode of my brother. We've been friends for a long time, and we finally got a chance to put this all together. We're both veterans, and today is 9/11, so it is a somber day. And not only do veterans suffer with PTSD, so do first responders, EMTs, firemen, police, dispatch. So we're not the only one that suffers. If you're in the green, the blue and the red also suffer. And in honor of the 343 firefighters that lost their lives on 9/11. But I talk about that, but I also talk about in total, there's been almost 10,000 deaths because of 9/11 cancer and other illnesses. So we didn't just lose those 2,975 individuals. We've lost over 10,000. So I just want to, give out all the love to the families and the first responders that we lost that day. But we're going to be talking about how to overcome PTSD. We're going to be talking about coffee, which I love. I'm actually drinking some at this moment. And we're going to be talking about how we can overcome some of the things that we've gone through in the past. So, my brother, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am well. And Rich, thanks very much for having me on the show. It's like you said, long time coming. Truly honored to be on here at this specific moment in time where it's the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. Means so much to both of us, so much to so many. Just by happenstance, this timing worked out perfectly. So thank you very much for having me on the show.
And I appreciate you. I'm trying to see if I can find it. I will find it. But what is your definition of resiliency?
Well, so resiliency is it has so many different facets to it. Because a lot of people they dial in the scope on just one type of resiliency instead of the broad spectrum of like I'm having problems with X, Y, and Z, or just X out of the X, Y, and Z, and then they want to just focus on the X when ultimately, if you were to start with how to be resilient with A, then X, Y, and Z would fall into place. So for me, resiliency is honestly, and this has actually been hitting me as of late, really, really dialing in and providing patience to what God's plan is for me.
And I truly appreciate that, and I love that about you. But now, a reason why I wanted to bring this up, I'm sorry to have my phone in my hand, but
no, you're fine.
When I wrote my first book, I actually reached out to if you guys love Superman, you know who Christopher Reeve is.
Right.
I actually reached out to his wife for a opening quote from her husband for my book, and she gracefully granted that quote for my opening page. And his quote was, "I think a hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles."
Yes.
And that's so many veterans, first responders, EMS, dispatch. And for me, and I even wrote it in my first page of my book, I said, because the book is called A Hero's Journey, I said, but I'm no hero. The heroes are the ones that ran into the buildings while everybody else was running away.
Fair enough.
And so I just, I wanted to just say that, and it doesn't have to be military. It doesn't have to be first responders. Anybody can be a hero at any time. It's just,
right.
And a lot of people, when you say, if you ask somebody, are you a hero? Most of them are going to be like, I tell everybody, I'm no hero, but I've served with a lot of them.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? So, and I know that's the way you feel.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I've had the honor of walking in the presence of several of them. So, yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So give us a quick down and dirty about who you are, where did you come from, where did you grow up, how did you and why did you join the military, and tell us your recruiting story.
Okay, so back in 19, I want to say it was 1989, late 1989. I started talking to the Marine Corps recruiter. His name was, it might be early 90, but his name was John Lundley. I still talk to him to this day. He was a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. He was a mortarman. He was the recruiter for where we were living at the time, which was Lake County, a couple towns and maybe a couple counties within, or a couple townships within Lake County, Illinois, which is north of Cook County, where Chicago is. So northwest of Chicago, up by the Wisconsin border. John had great stories. He had motivation. I have proved that I'm smart enough in other applications in schools through the military and other thing else. But at the time in high school, I was just a massive screw up, and I didn't give two rats' asses about schoolwork. So I was potentially going down the wrong path. I thought, I want to be a Marine. I saw the uniform. I want to get the hell out of there. So I became a Marine. When I joined, there ended up, out of a graduating class of 140, there ended up being 10 of us that went in the Marine Corps just that year. We used to do delayed entry program meetups on Wednesdays in the afternoon, and we'd go for runs and then swims and all sorts of PT stuff and whatnot. And John and his counterpart, and I forget the guy's name, the other staff sergeant, but they got us. I mean, they got us highly motivated to get ready for the Marine Corps, and I left. It's interestingly enough, September 9th of 1991, I arrived on the Yellow Footprints in San Diego. And then fast forward to 2003, on September 9th, I landed at the international airport in Baghdad for my first combat deployment.
All right, so because I see you're a smart dude, why did you choose the MOS that you chose? Because most people, as soon as they would hear that, they're like, don't you have anything safer? So
Right.
Why did you choose what you chose?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. And a lot of people are like, well, were you a Marine EOD or were you Army EOD? And honestly, I was a Marine that had a couple MOSs, got off active duty in 1996. 95, did a year of inactive reserve. So 96 is when I left active duty for the Marine Corps. And then in 1999, after a year of playing rugby at college and not doing the right things, I went and saw the Army recruiter, and then took the ASVAB over again, and then decided for, at the time it was 55 Delta, which was explosive ordnance disposal. Now it's 89 Delta. That was military bomb squad. And in 1999, that's what I chose as my MOS. So that's getting processed and leaving off for Fort Jackson in the Army at that point in time in 1999. I spent 12 days there getting paperwork and uniforms squared away and stuff. And then they thought I had to get an Army MOS. So they sent me to Redstone for 55 Bravo, which was BB stacker ammo supply stuff. I already had three Marine Corps MOSs, so I was technically AWOL my first long weekend in the Army, and they had to correct my orders and then send me down to Eglin for EOD school.
And so you spent some time at Relaxing Jackson. That was my last deployment was in 2011 for force protection. So tell me the difference, because I love it. I went from active duty and then I joined the National Guard, and it was a total mind fuck. I was just like, what did I just get into? So it must have been a total shock going from the Marine Corps mindset to becoming a nasty girl. What was that like?
Well, so interestingly, it was so there were some funny parts to it. Like I find the humor in it after the fact. Thinking about it now, um, I'm nobody special, so I get flown and shipped to Fort Jackson just like anybody else. I'm on orders, but when I get there and I start doing paperwork, I get pulled away for this or I get pulled away from that, and all these other kids they're staying with the massive group. And then I get pulled over. Like when we went through the lines for uniforms, they're already handing me specialist chevrons for my uniforms, all my dress uniform or all my uniforms. Excuse me. Period. So that was it was kind of unique, as I remember them looking at me. I'm an older guy, but here I am with this specialist rank and all this other stuff. And at some point in time, but not before it was funny, they took us away into our own little group where we all of us prior service guys that didn't have to do boot camp or whatever freaking had our own thing to do. So, yeah, again, 12 days of paperwork and getting uniforms, and then moving on to the next you know adventure, so to speak.
But there was a difference between being a specialist in the military and
Yeah, you're right.
in the active duty component.
Yeah.
And then being a specialist in National Guard, because in the military, if you're a specialist, I'm Army, so I don't know about the Marine Corps, but if you're a specialist, you're the shit before you become an E5. You're like the man with the plan. But everybody seems like once you join the National Guard, everybody becomes E4, and they call it the E4 Mafia for a reason, because everybody gets it, and there's and everybody doesn't, But in the active duty component, if you're E4, you're usually high speed because you're getting ready to go to 5, right?
Right. So to get back to your original question, my apologies. I guess it didn't dawn on me until later on, but looking back at it now, I can say that there was being a Marine, there was a lot more. There was, I guess, just it was a tighter comradeship of people in the Marine Corps, because, we're all Marines.
Yeah.
And maybe there was an approach of a certain amount of arrogance at each other, but it was not arrogance in a bad way. It was arrogance of like, I know how bad you are, you know how bad I am, so on and so forth. And we just went about our business. Getting into the Army, I'd have to say that it took me a while to get used to Army life, because I did 12 days at Jackson. I did a little bit of time at Huntsville, and then they corrected my orders and sent me to Eglin. I wasn't actually in the real Army until I finished EOD school in February of 2001, and then got stationed at what I don't know what it is now, but it used to be Fort Benning. That was my first duty station as an EOD guy for active duty for the Army.
All right, so let's go to 9/11, because for me,
Yep.
and everybody knows my story. I was due to be thrown out the second time from the military at the last weekend of the month of 2001, of September 2001. And I literally, as this is all happening, and because when I was watching it, it was live. There was no editing, and you could hear the bodies hitting the ground. You could see the man that fell off, that jumped off, and it was real. And I literally watched it unfurl, and all my TA-50 was to the right of the TV because I'm being thrown out. And I realized, bro, you just wasted 27 years of your life. And these men and women, they just went to work. They're not coming home. And that moment is when I realized you've wasted your whole military career being a fuck up. And that's when I literally fell into tears into my couch, bawling, crying. And I said, Lord, I said, give me another chance. Let me help others that can't help themselves. Now, that same day I took a call, and I called my commander and my first sergeant, which I'm still friends to this day, which I don't know how. And I went to call him, and I went to see him, and I said, listen, I'm sorry. And I said, I realize I'm being thrown out. If there's any way you can save me, I will come back a new man. And they said, you know what? We're gonna let you stay, but you're still getting knocked down from E4 to E1 again for like the sixth time. But they said they seen something different in me, in my eyes, and I went from EIOU1 to Soldier of the Year within 3 years.
Nice.
But it was because 9/11, what happened, it changed my life and my perspective. So what was it like for you being in the military on 9/11? Tell us your experience.
So September 9th, 2001, we had finished. I went to the unit early. We had finished PT. We were, getting situated to start the normal activities of the day. And I got a call from my wife, my first wife. I was married at the time. She said somebody ran a plane into the Twin Towers, and we hadn't seen anything on TV yet. So I thought maybe a Cessna pilot in a massive amount of fog had gotten discombobulated or whatever, and then just happened to run his plane into the Twin Towers, which I thought was, a horrible situation. Yet to understand the gravity of the entire day and then how things unfolded later on, we didn't do anything except watch on the TV. Anything that was there that day for training, stuff like that, none of the normal stuff happened. There was anger. There was, just people were amped up because this just happened. We're so effing going to war right now. And, we're on active duty. And we're EOD. We did the unit got locked down immediately, meaning that we were a high value asset moving forward. Now, when I say locked down in the sense of, because of the day's situation, we pulled 24-hour staff duty at the unit rather than use our normal 30-minute response time to the unit, because as EOD, we not only take care of stuff on the base, but we also respond to help civil authorities in different locations, depending on your jurisdiction, for where you're at in the states. So Fort Benning, Georgia had 56 counties in 3 states that we would respond to help out local law enforcement. And when I say help out local law enforcement, it would be this 98-year-old man from World War II passed away. His wife finally wants to get rid of that grenade that's been sitting on the mantle of the fireplace since he got back in 1945. You know what I'm saying? So she wants to get rid of it. She calls the cops. Cops call us because it's military ordinance. We take care of it. We take care of all that stuff. So, massive day, surreal. Always going to be etched in time. Similarly to, I've talked to my mom because my father taught history. I talked to my mom a bunch. Where were you at, Mom, when JFK was killed? They could rattle that off instantaneously because they knew.
Yep.
And I think that's what's unique about it's very unfortunate, but it's unique about what those of us that were alive at that time, active duty, doesn't matter, whatever, even civilians, they're going to be able to tell you the story where they were at and what they were doing on 9/11.
And for me, the greatest day that I know in my mind, in my opinion, which not worth a whole lot sometimes. In my opinion, the greatest day in my life was 9/12 because everybody, there was no African American, there was no Asian American, Italian American. We were all Americans. We saw that flags, I think, within the first hour. And a lot of times, if you see a police officer that came in, you were buying them. People were buying them coffee. If you see a veteran come in, you're buying them coffee. If my wife worked by the tunnels, police officers that were on guard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People were bringing food, coolers, waters, drinks, food. And we were all one America, united. We were a United States, even if it was just for that one day. So I think personally, there's another 9/11 coming. But I think that we need another 9/12 where we become, instead of red and blue, we become red, white, and blue again. What are your thoughts on 9/11 and 9/12?
I've never felt more patriotism than the conversations and the pledges to the community, the entire community, the American community, the speeches that were made. I have never felt more patriotic than after the tragedy of 9/11 than I did on 9/12. It's and today being the 23rd anniversary of 9/11, it's all over social media. I've seen some interesting perspectives and takes on what 9/11 means to different people. And then I saw one post that says, you know what? A lot of remembrance for 9/11 today. I hope that the vast majority of Americans remember what it was like on 9/12. Not that we're trying to take away from the loss of life and the tragedy, just the horrific tragedy that happened to the entire nation that day, but how tight knit and strong our nation was on 9/12 and resolve. Having the resolve, there's a path forward. We haven't identified it yet, but there's a path forward, and we're all together on this.
But unfortunately, I watched the debates last night, and I'm not going to get into that. But if we don't pay attention to our past, we're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that we need to get back to this country where if you need something and I have it, I come to you and I help you out. And I think we need to get back to that brotherhood and sisterhood of, I don't care how you vote, but if you need something, if you need food, you need water, I don't care how you're voting, I got you. Because even when we were in foxholes, the bullets never said, "Hey, are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican?" When the IEDs are going off, they don't care if they're killing Democrats or Republicans.
No, they don't.
So I just think we need to get back to just saying, okay, we are Americans. So, and I just want to just get your thought on that.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, Richard. It's going to tie into the PTSD, and then it's going to tie into finding Christ again and all the other topics that we're going to discuss today. But I ultimately believe it's we do better for ourselves when we try and help others. We do better for ourselves structurally and based on character when we show kindness to other people. And the common decency, the common decency and the kindness is massively missing from our community, our nation these days. Absolutely. There's so much division on so many different levels and so much hate in the world right now, right here in America and right here at home. And why can't we just agree to disagree and move on and be kind and courteous to each other? That's my biggest want and desire moving forward with the state of affairs for our nation now. And again, I'm of the same the same thing. I don't really talk about politics. who are you voting for? I'm voting for whoever I believe as an individual, as a citizen of the United States, is going to do the best for this country. And that's it. That's it. Once the vote's casted, I'm going to go about my life trying to freaking figure out how to deal with whatever the state of the nation is and take care of everything in my little circle instead of worrying about all the other crap.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of people, how do you feel? And I'm about it, and I'm like, well, I can't be poor because my father owns it all. So if he owns it all,
Right.
I'm allowed to borrow it all. But then I also, I think that, there's been millionaires made in the Republican years. There was millionaires made in the Democratic years. So it really doesn't affect me. As long as I know who's on the throne, it doesn't really affect me who's in the White House.
Yeah, I got you.
So I don't have that fear. Like, I know that my father lets me borrow the house that I'm in. And if I take care of it and I give him the honor and the glory, he's not going to mind me borrowing the beach house. If he doesn't mind me borrowing the Kia, he's not going to mind me borrowing the Lambo.
Right.
As long as I know I don't own it all, he owns it, and it's his, and I'm giving him the glory and the honor. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the White House.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I'm not in a position where I'm ready to dive deep into that. I will agree with you 100% that it's all God's timing and God's plan. I agree with you 100% on that. And that's if we want to talk about that moving forward, that's fine. I mean, it's a tinderbox dealing with the politics these days. Yeah. I saw, not that I'm trying to dive into it, but I saw so many different variations of what the outcome of last night was on social media, on YouTube, and then other places, and so on and so forth. And I'm just like, people really have to do their deep dive on these issues to figure out who's actually telling the truth across the board, period. And most people don't. Most people just take it at face value and like, here's a cup of water, but then it doesn't end up being a cup of water, but they force you to believe that it's a cup of water, and people believe that it's a cup of water, and that's not the way we're supposed to do things these days, or any day.
Yeah, so I agree. So now let's talk about the end of your military career, and then let's talk about the military transitioning, because one of the member of our tribe, Sergeant Nick, always talks about how when you step off base, the military doesn't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. A lot of us don't do the full 20, so we don't have a pension. So now you're broke mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, don't have a mission, you don't have camaraderie, and a lot of us end up at the bottom of a bottle or at the end of a barrel.
Sure.
So what was your military career like, and did you suffer with PTSD, and what was your transition like?
Yeah, so I would say my transition was a little bit different because I got off active duty in 2007. I spent literally just a couple months working different jobs, still within my field of explosive ordnance disposal, but then got hired on for a contract and then went right back over to Iraq in 2008. So I'd been to Iraq in 2003, 2004 as active duty. I'd been to Afghanistan in 2005 as active duty. I got off active duty in September of 2007. By May of 2008, I was back in Iraq. So for me, the transition didn't have the fallout that it may have had for other people, like right after you walk off the base, in the sense of just the severity of not being a part of the community anymore, and not being able to identify that clear purpose, I utilized my ability to go on contracts to combat zones to fill that void for myself. Now that's not a healthy way to handle it, and we can talk about that at the a little bit later on. But that was how I fed the need to have purpose at the time, was government contracts, either stateside or overseas. I was a contractor. I was still attached to the military. I still had that feed. I was still getting that, that military main vein freaking pump into your vein type thing, because I was still working with the military. So fast forward again, 2007, when I got off active duty. Fast forward through Baghdad again in 08. I did a war crimes case in 09. I worked for government contracting companies, training all over the place. I went through a divorce. And then I went back to Afghanistan in 10, 11, and 12, and I was on a Siege of SOTF contract, or a soft contract, out at SOTF West. But it had interactions with Siege of SOTF all the time. And then when I got back in 12, I kind of stepped away from it all because some things at home were not good. My ex-wife was really struggling. We had a really hard time co-parenting up to that point, and my son was suffering. Our attitudes over time changed towards each other, and it got better for my son. But the problems that were arising for my son, based on our stance with each other, I identified immediately and then stuck around to try and fix it. So I was out in the Albuquerque area for like 7 years, working odd jobs, taking jobs here, taking jobs there, whatever. None of my, and to talk about PTSD directly, because of PTSD, when I was of age to have a relationship in my late teenage years, early 20s on to, and I'm 51 now, none of my relationships have worked because of PTSD. When I went to PTSD therapy, mental health therapy, some of it was identified as being 25 years old. We're talking about like when I was a kid. It stemmed from times with my parents and stuff like that. And then it's just compounded upon as you go through other phases of your life. So combat and dealing with, struggling with relationships that, like every relationship I had was interesting. It was interesting how how I was the one that caused its failure, because I had abandonment issues for my mom, because when I was 8 years old, she was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I was 8 years old, and now all of a sudden mom's got 6 months to live. Now that subconsciously screwed me up forever. I'm still working on that, but my point is that was a subconscious tick in the wrong direction in my relationships with anybody that I had. I've got 2 ex-wives. I've had long-term, short-term relationships, whatever the case may be. I've had relationships where I wanted desperately for them to work, but they didn't, because I've been the my own worst enemy at times. But to get back more to the point, I got off active duty in 07, September of 07. It was January 4th, was the day that's like my alive day. For those of us that have suffered from PTSD, I had the gun sitting on the bed next to me, and I pulled the trigger on a phone call instead of pulling the trigger on the gun that day. And then I went to mental health.
Okay, because I've guys, and if you guys are watching this, I am no professional. I don't have degrees. I don't even have a high school diploma. But I've interviewed over 1,350 veterans, psychologists, doctors, and I found that most adults that act out, it's because of trauma from the ages of 3 to 13.
Yep.
Then you add alcohol to the mix, sometimes, not all the time. And then you add war to the mix, and it becomes the perfect storm.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can tell you how to get out of the perfect storm unless you've been in it and you can reach down and say, brother, I got you. Let me help you pull you up. So
Yeah.
instead of pulling the trigger on the weapon that day, what made you pick up the phone? Because sometimes the phone is the heaviest object you'll ever try to pick up.
I honestly was trying to have a conversation with my ex from that time period. I had spent 9 months really spiraling down a toilet bowl. I had discarded her in my life, and that was June when I made the phone call. It was March when I had like thrown her away, discarded her. And I don't know if I'll be honest with you. I made the phone call just to talk. And I don't know if I was going to tell her that I'm leaving or what. I had no idea what I was going to say. But when I called, she answered the phone and we did talk, and we talked. And of course, she was there she had already moved on in her life, but she was there telephonically in some video calls with me through all of my mental health therapy for the next from July until December. So I honestly believe that that she was there on purpose in God's plan. That it was that phone call was what saved my life that day. And I believe that it has impacted saving my life every day since then, because I actually moved on it and acted upon it and went and got mental health. So, real quick snippet though, for all the viewers that are watching, if I mute and I like go into the convulsions, I got sick the last couple days and I'm coughing and I don't want to cough on the video. So I'm just letting your viewers know that I'm not having seizures and stuff like that. So,
Okay. So we won't make too much fun of you then.
you can make as much fun of me as you want. Bring it. I love it. I got no problem with that whatsoever. So I'm a kind of funny guy to make fun of. It works out good. So,
all right. So, a lot of people like, now I'm a two-time survivor. But a lot of times people they'll hear the small voice,
mm-hmm.
but they don't take action upon it. Like for me, I almost took myself out again about 2 months ago. Thank God I didn't. But for me, it was a moment where I was like, okay, like my father used to say, you got to shit or get off the pot.
Right.
And for me, I'm always about steps and action. So once you had that phone call, what were your next steps the next day and the next couple of weeks afterwards?
We stayed in contact. I called the VA and self-referred myself for mental health, not inpatient, and based on talking to whoever was on the other end of the line, I don't remember. I asked to come in for a mental health assessment is what I asked for. I was living with my father at the time in a city called Naperville, Illinois, which is in the southwest. It's a southwest suburb of downtown. The VA center is over in I can't remember the name of the VA center. I will say this: the VA center it's so large that it has its own zip code. In southern Illinois, it's in the suburbs. It's 17 miles from my dad's house. So my point is I did a self-assessment, or asked to have a mental health assessment done. So I went into, and based off of that, by July 4th weekend, this is the 4th of June. By July 4th weekend, I was already established for a cognitive behavioral therapy program. I had I had interacted with the directors of the whatever, or whoever was in charge. I guess you could call them case agents, whatever you want. And when I got on my first call with the doc, and he wasn't military, relatively young kid. I was 49 at the time, 48, 49. I told him, I said, Doc, I said, I need to understand that I can trust you and that you and I can have an open conversation and that you're not going to judge me. I said, because that's the type of stuff that I have from my military experiences with the docs that took care of me there. And I realize that maybe I'm comparing apples and oranges, but wounds that you receive physically are the same, or you have the same, you want the same trust and bond with the docs that help you out with your head wounds too. So I told him, I said, if I can't be real in this, and if you're not going to take me at my core for some of this stuff or all this stuff, I said, this isn't going to work if I can't trust you. So he said he understood. I didn't end up, I never asked to freaking change anything as far as the program goes. I stayed with him the whole time. And it was during COVID. So once a week, they mailed me my exercise book, and then I have to do exercises throughout the week as far as, through the book for the program. And then we'd rehash stuff and have like an hour conversation and check in with each other and do like the actual therapy session on Wednesdays. So.
Okay. Cause now I want, something I wrote down, because like I said, I've interviewed a lot of veterans, first responders, EMS, and veterans and first responders. We pretty much run neck and neck. We're pretty much just wearing different colors. Right. But veterans and first responders see and do shit no human being should ever see or do. And it's called moral injury. And I don't hear it being talked about a lot on shows. So talk to me about, a lot of people, they talk about PTSD. Well, where did the PTSD, a lot of it come from? It's from taking lives, being shot at, watching our buddies die. And then also, realizing, why did I make it and Joe didn't make it? Right. So now you're coming home with that shit. And the average person doesn't have to deal. A teacher comes in, they might have had a bad day, the kid was bad, or they lost their pencils. Veterans and first responders, if we have a bad day and we're outside the wire, we lose a buddy. Right. And that's something that doesn't go away. That stays with us. So talk about moral injury, because I don't really hear about it a lot on shows.
Okay, so I guess what you're referring to for moral injury would be, what were some of the sticking points from my deployments that would align in the sense of leaving an imprint on me in the conscious and also subconscious category.
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, one of the biggest sticking points that I have for myself is doing EOD work in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're a combat service support entity, but we were on the front lines with this shit because it was an asymmetric warfare, or an asymmetric freaking battlefield. And we're either trying to prevent things from detonating, or we're going in and having to do post-blast analysis on things that have already detonated, so that we can get, at that time, we can go to the forensic side of the house and freaking, grab freaking, tape or part of the initiation device or fragmentation or whatever. So that way we get a reverse engineer and identify what kind of device it was, because it was a constant battle. Iraq was a constant battle of who has the higher technology, jammers or freaking using RF or radio frequencies and stuff like that. Whereas Afghanistan, they went straight archaic on us. They were using stab detonators. They didn't have the massive social or societal freaking infrastructure in Afghanistan as we did in Iraq. So post blasts were huge sticking points for me. And when I mean post blast, you arrive on site and you're at the seat of the detonation. So you got a massive hole and whatever's left around it from, let's say it was a car bomb, a V-bid. That has detonated. You've got pieces and parts of the car, pieces and parts of the bomb. The engine block usually went a couple hundred meters straight down the road. And then as you move outward from the epicenter of the detonation, you find bigger pieces and bigger things, and some of it's had nothing to do with the car or the bomb. It was a brick wall that became fragmentation because the blast freaking knocked the wall over and sent these rocks flying or the bricks flying and so on and so forth. So what I'm getting at is near the epicenter of the detonation, you see blood. As you go further away from the detonation, the point of impact of the detonation, you start to see bits and pieces of humans. And then you get to see larger bits and pieces of humans. And then you get to see like arms and legs and torsos and heads and stuff of that nature as people were blown apart. And then you get to see men, women, and children that have just died because the blast overpressure scrambled their brains or blew up their heart or whatever the case may be, even further away from the detonation. The sheer, I guess you could say, I don't want to say horror, but it is. I mean, it's technically horror. The sheer horror of loss of life in those situations was, I was prepared to handle any type of bomb. I was prepared to handle any type of a grenade, an improvised device, a projectile, or a 107 rocket, anything. I could handle any of that. What didn't prepare me, with what no school that I would ever taken in the military prepared me for, was the sheer devastation of loss of life, all life, indiscriminate loss of life, from the detonation point moving outward until you find the whole bodies, and women still holding on to their babies, and they're both dead. You know, thrown 30 feet, whatever, but they're still dead. Yeah, that was one of the sticking points for me with my PTSD.
All right, so let me ask another question, because this is something I don't hear. I've never heard it on any other show but here. And the only reason I heard about it is because I'm a big football fan and I'm a big professional wrestling fan. And once one of my favorite players of all time, Junior Seau, took his life.
Yep.
I started thinking to myself, wait a minute, I spent 23 years in a tank. And I know whenever the main gun goes off on an M1 Abrams, you feel the recoil.
Right.
And how many miniature concussions have I had in my lifetime? And that's when I talked to Christopher Nowinski about, what's the possibility of veterans killing themselves because they have CTE and you can't really test for it until you're dead. So how many of us have been concussed so many times? Now we have CTE, and I've never heard it talked about at a VA ever, except for on this show. So what are your thoughts on, because I heard, I was talking to one of my friends, he's a doctor, that they're going to start, I think in 25, they're going to start doing baseline MRIs on the brain before you go in. And every year or so doing MRIs to see how your brain is doing. So what is your thoughts on maybe CTE causing a lot of these PTSD suicides?
Oh, I'm sure it has a massive effect on it, or implication in the overall picture. I'm not really. What do you CTE? What's the definition of CTE? Is an acronym.
It's when you get multiple concussions and your brain starts dying.
Okay.
Pieces
So
of it starts dying off little by little.
okay, so fair enough. Along those lines, I'm not going to discuss like football injuries. I will discuss the impact to the brain,
Yeah.
the trauma to the brain based on those types of things, whether it be done by a 250-pound linebacker or whether it's done by you get blown off your feet from a detonation that went on. They are doing studies now for the impact of post or blast overpressure, the shock wave that comes off of a detonation. They're doing studies now in several colleges. The government's behind it, the VA's behind it. It's going to become a rating. They're just trying to figure it all out. So that way they can identify a threshold as you're referring to, from the baseline of coming into the military. And then I spent 10 years as a sniper. Every 50 cal round that went off, I got a little bit of an impact. How has that affected that guy's nugget?
Yeah.
I myself, over 400 some odd missions in Iraq and Afghanistan on active duty. Almost every time I was inside the threshold of the blast overpressure, how has that affected my head? Not only my head, but on a cellular level, how about it? Or molecular level, how's it affected the rest of my body? Because it doesn't just disrupt the brain tissue and the brain matter. It disrupts the synapses, the firing, the electrical firing, the freaking, on a cellular level, it can screw up a whole bunch of things. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm trying not to sneeze. Sorry. So I'm excited about this new study that they're doing, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it, and they're trying to establish baselines, which can be utilized to provide ratings within the VA system. So super excited about that. It has its own unique flavor to it in the sense of, and I don't know the words as how they describe it, but it does relate to the concussions like you were referring to with your football player. I mean, I played rugby. I understand concussions from playing, contact sports. I get it. So, yeah, it's. I think this is all good for everybody that's been in the military, and again, a lot of it has to deal with catching up, right? Up until the first couple of years of the Iraq, the global war on terrorism, it was still called shell shock instead of freaking TBI.
Yep.
So.
Yes.
It takes time, but the systems are evolving. The systems are approaching things in a good stance to prevent or to help us, and then also provide measurable. Hold on a second. Measurable impact for each and every one of us, but it's going to be the younger kids. I don't know if it'll be around in my time or yours. I don't know. We can only hope.
Okay, so let's talk about, for me, my transitioning was very hard because, well, after I was given another chance, I became Soldier of the Year. I became an NCO, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And then I get hurt on duty and I lose 60% of my vision. And they say, well, you can't shoot. We don't need you. It's been nice knowing you, Sergeant Kaufman, but you're no longer Sergeant Kaufman. You're Private Joe. You're Private Joe Civilian again.
Right.
And for me, that's where my transition was. That's when my suicide attempt was in Labor Day 2012. So if there's somebody getting out today, because this goes out to active duty veterans, how do you go about finding a mission again when you're no longer the thing you've been for the last 4, 8, 12, 20 years, and you're starting at the bottom again?
Okay, so great question. That's a fantastic question and a good approach too, because I'm going to lay it out like this. Units today are more aware and are interacting with the soldiers, the sailors, the Marines, and the airmen about mental health awareness. They've seen the impact of no programs, nothing being said as far as what's happened in the last 15 years and how many, I mean, we've lost more veterans to suicide than we did in the conflicts for 20 years. So departments of the military are handling it internally within their own branch. They're opening up the doors and they're working on it harder to stay in tune with mental health for all service members. Second thing is that if you don't believe in a higher power, I would suggest that the little things that you do in your life, like you have a goal to continue to work in the gym, make that your short-term purpose. It's a short-term goal, but transition from goal and make it a purpose. Maybe figure out how you could, through education, make that work for you as a moneymaker or whatever the case may be. You have to you have strived all your existence in the military to become better, to reach a higher rank, to get stronger, to do things and excel at it. Don't stop just because you don't have the community when you get off active duty. Take those things, make them self short-term purposes, and drive forward with that, because life will present long-term purpose for you when you least expect it. For those of us that have faith, really lean in on your community of faith. I was going through. I haven't been in church in forever, and very rarely talk to God unless I was upset about some things. And I strengthened when I was going through the cognitive behavioral therapy. I found FOB Truth, which is the fundamentals of biblical truth, and they called Drew Toothman, who's a Marine EOD guy, called it FOB Truth to kind of tag in and link with us, to those that are veterans from forward operating base, to make it fundamentals of biblical truth. I have been with them since the middle of my mental health therapy in 2001. Those relationships, the strength that we have, the people that we talk to, the community, the communion and community of that is absolutely priceless. So I recommend, don't expect it to be given to you in a handout. You've got to search for it, but you can find it. Reach out to veterans programs, VFW, American Legion. Just there's tons of freaking nonprofits out there. There's vocational programs to help you decide what next thing you can do for your transition. You know, I was a ground support equipment operator for the Marine Corps on the air wing side, but now I want to go do HVAC. Well, there's vocational programs for that. You know, just wake up every day and try and be thankful for the day, and then try and drive yourself to be better than the day before. And for God's sakes, don't stop having conversations with the person you see in the morning or in the mirror every morning, to get to the root of the problem and focus on what you need to do for yourself to keep your strength.
And, you know, that's something that I love that me and you are in accord with, that, you know, we have many friends in common.
Yes.
You know, a lot of them are faith-based, like my friend Matt Matorian. He brought me back to Christ. Jose from Third Day Coffee Seguin, another Christian. Ginger and David.
Yep.
Brian Gibson from Project Die Hard. You know, these are people that I know, if I'm struggling with something, I could just say, hey, can we hop on a call for a few minutes? And they know that, you know, I'm going to be vulnerable with them. They're vulnerable with me. Even like when Jose lost his son to suicide, he was vulnerable enough to say, hey, guys, I need help. I need support. And I think that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most. Do you agree?
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that, but I also believe that each of us is so unique in God's eyes that we can bring a unique facet to the community. So if you have the five closest friends, there's one thing each unique about every single one of the 5 that is brought to the table, and not necessarily anybody else brings that to the table.
I love it. So talk to me, because my coffee is made by Jose.
Yep.
Vertical Momentum Resiliency Coffee. I haven't really been pushing it much. I'm drinking my own supply. I'm getting high on my own supply. So talk to us about Master Blaster Coffee.
So another thing that, and thank you for that, Master Blaster Coffee, veteran-owned small business, in business with Jose, Third Day Seguin, and I kind of happened upon his post in Veteranpreneur Tribe, which is a group of 16,000 veterans or whatever on social media. He wanted to expand volume for his coffee business, so he came up with a white bag program, and myself, and I believe you and maybe some others, and I brought a couple of others to the table since then. We took him up on his offer, and what it is it's really just fantastic coffee, and then we're branding it as our own. Now, that's a good start to a business model, and I am so happy that we're still on this and we're still moving forward. And especially in today's economy, I'm just happy people are still buying my coffee, Master Blaster Coffee. So, but the coffee company has not only allowed me to move forward in business, it's had an amazing impact on my relationship through the coffee with the EOD Warrior community, or EOD Warrior Foundation, and the EOD community, because every single military bomb squad person out there, we all wear the same badge, because whether you're Air Force, Marines, Navy, or Army, you all go through the same school.
Yeah.
So we're all tied together through that badge. It's opened up the ability for me to bring good things to the community, to help with the community. It's really strengthened my relationship over the years. It's strengthened my relationship with Jose. For a while there, I was doing an extra. So I lasted 841 days of bringing awareness and prevention to suicide rates in not only veterans but first responders. Because I took the push-up challenge and went straight steroids with it, and did it I was doing over 22 a day, and then I did it for 841 days straight. So, it's the coffee, the community, finding your niche and connecting with people that are veterans or that are like-minded individuals from the communities that you come from. That's key. Absolutely key. So.
And also, Ginger and David also make your swag. I love your swag. So talk to us about that.
Thanks, appreciate it. We're actually coming out with two new versions of a shirt. I won't steal the thunder on this, but because I'm going to throw it out there all over social media. But Ginger and David, similar to the coffee, and this is one of the great things about the coffee with Jose, was orders could come in and then he would just drop ship it to our customers wherever they're at. Ginger and David run a merchandise firm, and they do the same thing. So Jose's in Texas, and then Ginger and David are in Oklahoma. You order a coffee mug, you order a T-shirt, you order a tumbler, you order a pickleball paddle, or whatever the case may be, and you can order it from our site, and then they make it and then drop ship it directly to you as a customer. What I love about that relationship is, one, they're amazing people, and Ginger and I joke around about it all the time, but we have like our hen clucking, calls where it's just the girls hanging out and we're talking on the phone, between me and her, and laughing about stories and stuff like that. And we have a great time with it. So, but I don't have to store, at the time living with Dad, I didn't have to store 100 cups or 100 T-shirts or whatever in his garage, and then handle shipping when orders came in. They handle it all in the drop shipment, and then it works out great for everybody because they're already doing it. And it was a seamless transition. It was fantastic.
And I love Ginger and David. They have all my swag. I got new T-shirts coming out. I awesome. Love them. So how do we find you? How do we support your mission? How do we get Master Blaster coffee? And for some reason, you picked up this crazy book of mine.
Yep.
Do you have anything? Do you have anything in the plans coming up?
So I've got several things I want to do in the next, say 6 to 8 months with the coffee company. We are releasing 2 new t-shirts here soon. We are, as of October 1st, we're going to be back into the seasonal blends of all of our coffee. The easiest way to find Master Blaster Coffee is on Facebook at Master Blaster Coffee LLC. That's a page of its own. It'll take you to the website. If you don't do social media, just do masterblastercoffee.us. It'll come up, it'll pop up, and then you can order coffee. There's a link on the coffee shop website or storefront to go to the merchandise to check out what Ginger and David have for us as well. So I run it's slowly gaining traction. I run a page on Facebook with a retired Leo brother of mine. He and I do Diffusing 22 Plus, which is bringing awareness and prevention to suicide rates in veterans and first responders. My page is public, Stephen, with a PH, as you see it on the screen right there. I spelled out my name. That's my name. Look for this mug on the face of the in the avatar there for my page, and you can follow me. I'm over 5,000 people. Please don't send me a friend request. Follow me, and you'll be able to see everything that I'm doing. I've got my own podcast, Tripwire. That happens every Wednesday. And there's links for that everywhere. And then I'm also going to be starting back up with my 22 here soon. So
I love it, and I can't wait for you to receive that book. It's supposed to be there on the 7th. I can't wait to get your introspect on that.
I think it's actually already arrived. It's at my friend's house north of Richmond because I don't want porch pirates stealing my stuff. So I have because I'm still trying to figure out where I'm living down here. So I had it sent up there.
I love it. But guys, I wanted to put this out there. If you buy my book, if you buy any of my books, any of my swag, t-shirts, coffee, I don't make any money off of it. 100% of the profits go to help Brian Gibson at Project Die Hard. And what they're doing is they're helping eventually, once FOB Rush gets done, they're going to be able to take 30 veterans and their families, take care of them for 1 year, physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. So I think that would be able to way to save lives instead of just saying, like you were saying, a lot of people do the 22 push-ups a day. Well, how about making 22 phone calls a day, 22 text messages, or donate to an organization where 100% of the money goes to help veterans. So guys, if you want to help me save more lives, put in veteran down there and I'll get you the information. Brother, I just want to say, we've been friends. I don't know. I've been in the tribe. I've been in there since there was 500 members. And we've been friends for a long time. And I just want to say thank you for always being that guy. If I needed somebody to talk to, you were always there for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I try to share that with everybody. Pardon me, private groups that I belong to within the EOD community. I throw it out there all the time. I mean, like, again, as you mentioned earlier, I'm not a clinical option, but I am somebody that will sit there and listen to you and let you vent, talk to me, get stuff off your chest, reminisce about whatever. I mean, I want to just help veterans. I want to help people, first responders and veterans. So,
and one thing I think we're both in agreement that we would rather hear your bullshit than to hear your eulogy. And now we're always here for somebody that's struggling because there was somebody there that picked up the phone when we needed it. So we're just paying it forward. So, brother, I just want to say thank you. I'm so humbled and grateful for your friendship. And I hopefully we can build generational relationships.
Absolutely. That's a two-way street, brother. I'm very happy to be your friend. And it's been awesome watching you grow with your movement and your path that God has for you. So I've been trying to support, but also I'm always understand I'm in the background with the pom poms, always cheering you on, man.
I love it. And guys, I always end my show with this. Like Joel Osteen says, every morning you wake up, you can either choose to be a victim or you can choose to be the victor. And if you listen to this show, you guys are no longer victims of your past, but you're victors of your present and your future. Thank you guys for always showing up, and I love you guys. Brother, have a great week. Take care of yourself, and I see big things coming for us together, working together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show tonight, and God bless everybody.
I love you, brother. And guys, remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have a great week. Stephen, my brother, be good.
See you. Take care. Bye.